Beauty, elegance, and slenderness, combined with visual strength and perfect dimensions, make the Cathedral of Our Lady of the Assumption and San Frutos obtain the well-deserved designation of the Lady of Cathedrals. Located in the Plaza Mayor and built between the 16th and the 18th centuries, the Cathedral of Segovia is part of the late Gothic style, and it is the last cathedral of the style to be built in Spain. At this time, the prevailing architecture in Europe was already Renaissance. That is why in the Cathedral of Segovia we can discern a predominantly Gothic style, but already framed with some Renaissance features. Each of the different stones that make up the Holy Church of Our Lady of the Assumption and San Frutos reveal centuries and centuries of great history. The same history that prevails throughout the city, chosen as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO in 1985. The first stone was placed on the western facade on June 8, 1525, once the War of the Communities had ended. It was Charles I of Spain and V of Germany who ordered the construction of the new cathedral away from the current Alcázar. The cathedral was built on the highest point of the city. The first architect of the cathedral was Juan Gil de Ontañón, who was also the master builder of the Salamanca Cathedral. The consecration of the Cathedral of Segovia was on July 16, 1768, by Bishop Don José Martínez Escalzo, 243 years after the laying of the first stone. To reduce costs, some elements of the old cathedral were moved to the new location. The magnificent 15th century cloister designed by Juan Guas, the choir, and also sculptures, paintings, and ironwork. The temple was raised from the foot to the head, in opposite way to how cathedrals were usually built. Hence, the transept was not closed until 1685. Inside the Cathedral of Segovia, the light that passes through the stained glass windows envelops the visitor in a fascinating world of color. The cathedral has one of the most accomplished sets of Mannerist stained glass windows from the catechetical point of view in Spain, with a total of 157 stained glass windows distributed in the naves, ambulatory and presbytery. The ambulatory is flanked by 7 chapels. The design of the ambulatory corresponds to Juan Gil de Ontañón and Juan Rodríguez, who proposed a head with an ambulatory of 5 radial, pentagonal, and 2 square chapels at the beginning. The survey acquired great complexity during the Gothic period, to the point of sometimes cancelling out the remaining parts of the temple. It was designed by Juan Gil de Ontañón and executed by his son Rodrigo and the manufacturer Juan Rodríguez, and it is an outstanding representation of the combination of the elements of buttresses, pinnacles, and gargoyles, which multiply in quantity and slenderness thanks to the choice of the polygonal shape in staggered 3 levels. The person in charge of closing the transept was Francisco de Viadero, following the traces of Rodrigo Gil de Ontañón, but playing with the new style of the second half of the 17th century, the Baroque. The objective was to tune the harmony and integration of the hemispherical dome both inside and out, raised in a cylindrical drum on pendentives. Inside, the 4 evangelists are represented on the pendentives. On the outside, the cylindrical drum is hidden with a crest that crowns the square body. The cathedral possesses 3 doors. The door of San Geroteo, its name refers to the first bishop of the Diocese of Segovia. The Puerta de Santa María or Puerta del Perdón, surrounded by 2 side doors on the main facade of the cathedral. And the door of San Frutos. This doorway requires special attention since, among other notable features, it is the usual entrance of the cathedral. Likewise, it should be noted that it is dedicated to San Frutos, patron saint of the diocese and patron of the Cathedral of Segovia. The choir of the Cathedral of Segovia is located in front of the main altar and occupies the third and the fourth sections respectively. It comes mostly from the ancient cathedral. The carving work ended with the placement of the chairs intended for King Henry IV and Queen Joanna of Portugal. The cathedral choir currently has a total of 116 chairs organized on 2 levels. The chairs are of Gothic style with geometric decorations on the backrests. Natural themes stand out in the arms. In the center of the choir we find an impressive lectern sitting on a beautiful Renaissance pedestal decorated with trophies. In it are placed the large and heavy chanters made of wooden boards and sheets of parchment. The sumptuous organs complete the choir and date from 1702 and 1769 respectively. These 2 organs reach almost 19 meters in height and each houses around 2,600 pipes, in addition to other elements, forming an exceptional set for its stylistic and historical quality, in addition to being considered fundamental pieces to understand the evolution of Spanish Baroque music. The main chapel as well as the choir constitute one of the noblest parts in the Cathedral of Segovia. These are linked through the sacral route. On the floor of this route we can find different slabs of different bishops of Segovia. The main chapel is one of the most important spaces in the cathedral, as it is the place where the Eucharist is celebrated. Located at the head, the formidable vault with a square floor plan resolved with oval arches stands out. In this space we can discern the main altarpiece designed by the Italian architect Francisco de Sabatini. The altarpiece of the main altar of the Cathedral of Segovia is made up of 2 bodies of different heights. The lower body has 4 large columns where the carving of Our Lady of Peace is located. On both sides we find 2 large Baroque images representing San Frutos, patron saint of Segovia, and San Geroteo, first bishop of the city. Above this body there is a smaller one in which there are 2 images of the Segovian saints San Valentin and Santa Ingracia, in addition to the anagram of the Virgin surrounded by clouds and heads of seraphim, alluding to her assumption into heaven. In 1782, the Cabildo decided to renew the retrochoir. To do this, they requested from the king Carlos III the marble altarpiece from the Rio Frio Palace, the work of Hubert Dumandret in 1758. A niche occupied by a silver urn houses the relics of the patron saint of Segovia, San Frutos. This central body is crowned by the sculptures of Saint Peter, Saint Paul, and the Holy Trinity. One of the most impressive chapels of the Segovia Cathedral is La Capilla del Santísimo, or La Capilla de los Alaya Berganza, and it is a clear exponent of the Baroque architecture of the Cathedral of Segovia. Inside, the Christ of Agony stands out, the work of the sculptor Manuel de Pereira. In front stands the Baroque altarpiece from the 17th century. Once we pass the 3 bars, the Alaya Berganza chapel begins. With a square floor plan, it is crowned with a half-orange dome on pendentives and was proposed to the Cabildo for construction by one of the last members of the noble Alaya dynasty. The interior of the Alaya Berganza chapel represents an exaltation of the Blessed Sacrament. 4 tombs belonging to the Alaya are attached to the side walls. The main altarpiece is undoubtedly the most significant work in the family pantheon. Designed by José de Churriguera, it is composed of 2 Solomonic columns on both sides. The superb tabernacle was incorporated into the chapel's altarpiece in 1718. The upper part is finished with the faith that contains the chalice in its right hand and the cross in the left. Another chapel of enormous beauty in the cathedral is that of San Anton, located on the left side if we enter through the San Frutos doorway, and it has an impressive altarpiece that is the work of José Vallejo Vivanco, a prominent altarpiece and master of royal works. 4 Solomonic columns divide the body of this altarpiece in 3 streets. The central one, occupied by the niche with the image of the owner, is the work of Pedro del Valle, and the lateral ones a canvas of a miracle of San Frutos, patron saint of Segovia, and to the right a painting that represents the Eucharistic miracle of San Antonio from Padua. The Cathedral of Segovia features another 18 chapels for a total of 20, each one more impressive than the last. The Chapel of La Piedad, with its altarpiece of the Holy Burial, considered a masterpiece of Spanish sculpture that was carved in polychrome wood by Juan de Juni. The Chapel of San Andrés, with the altarpiece of 2 bodies and the representation of martyrdom of San Andrés. The niche chapel of San Cosme and San Damiano is located in the 3rd section on the Gospel side. Without a doubt, one of the most relevant pieces of the chapel is the altarpiece with classicist traces. The Chapel of San Gregorio, founded in 1623. The altarpiece is made up of 3 streets divided by Solomonic columns and several canvases. The Chapel of the Immaculate Conception, built a few years after the construction of the cathedral began. The paintings are the fundamental elements that stand out in this chapel as a whole, thanks to the quality of 21 canvases and frescoes that make this space become a large mural. The Chapel of San Blas is the first chapel located on the epistle side. It corresponds to the first construction phase of the cathedral and serves as the entrance to the tower. The Chapel of the Recumbent Christ, the central hall of the altarpiece, is filled with a large canvas of the descent of Christ, and on the top there is another of Calvary with the figure of Mary Magdalene at the foot of the cross. The Recumbent Christ is a Baroque work from the 17th century made by Gregorio Fernandez. The Chapel of Saint Barbara is located in the epistle nave. The image is a sculpture from the 18th century, round and made of polychrome wood. To the right of the chapel is the 15th century baptismal font from the old Romanesque cathedral. The Cristo del Consuelo chapel in the epistle nave gives way to the cloister of the cathedral. The 7 chapels of the ambulatory, formed by the chapel of San Pedro, the chapel of San Ildefonso, the chapel of San Geroteo, the chapel of San Frutos, located in the center of the ambulatory and in a Rococo style, the chapel of San Antonio de Padua, the chapel of Our Lady of the Rosario, and the chapel of Saint Joseph. The cloister of the Cathedral of Segovia, a clear example of late Gothic from the 15th century, was built next to the old cathedral and moved to the new location stone by stone. Its facade is of flamboyant Gothic style, paid for by Isabel la Católica and made by Juan Guas in 1483. From here we have the entrance to several chapels, such as the Chapel of Santa Catalina in the lower body of the tower, being a current exhibition hall. The hall under the cloister is the most important exhibition hall of the cathedral. This room has a total of 405 square meters, where 42 Flemish and Castilian pictorial works of high artistic and religious value are exhibited. The most emblematic work, which will focus the visitor's attention, is the triptych of the Descent of Ambrosius Benson. The chapter house houses the series of tapestries Zenobia, Queen of Palmyra, the best preserved and most relevant of the 4 that the temple houses. At the back of the room is the image of the crucified Christ, and an enormous Turkish knot rug measuring 9 meters long and 6 meters wide is spread on the floor. The tower of the Cathedral of Segovia is without a doubt one of the greatest architectural references for the visitors. Its slenderness and uniqueness make it the jewel in the crown of this cathedral. In its origins, it was topped with a wooden spire and a pyramidal structure, raising the tower to 108 meters, being the tallest in Spain during the 17th century. However, on September 18, 1614, this spire was destroyed by fire during a great electrical storm never before seen in the history of the city. The reconstruction of the tower reduced its height to 88 meters. On the way to access the bell tower, we will need to climb more than 190 steps on a spiral staircase, passing through the audio-visual room, where after climbing 70 steps, an immersive video mapping of the history of the tower and the construction of the cathedral awaits us. Higher up, we will visit the house of the bell ringer and his family, the person in charge of ringing the bells, a more than relevant job in past times, since he was not only in charge of letting the citizens know the hours, but through the bells communicated any event or emergency to the city. The clock room is the workplace in which the bell mechanism was operated. And finally, we would arrive at the bell tower, and perhaps the most anticipated thing due to the panoramic views offered by the highest viewpoint in the city. And with these views, we finish the visit of the Cathedral of Segovia, a late Gothic wonder that you should definitely visit. My name is Alex Moraras. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, share, and definitely subscribe to watch more amazing videos before you come to Spain.